Hey, everybody, welcome into another episode of A Nichols Worth. I'm your host, of course. No surprise there. Keaton Nichols at Keaton D. Nichols. That's at Keaton D. Nichols. Make sure you follow and subscribe to the show at A Nichols Worth on YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Anchor, all that other good stuff. Just at A Nichols Worth. If you're watching us on Facebook or any of those other visual mediums, you'll see it scrolling across the bottom as well. Make sure you subscribe, folks, and keep up with all of our good stuff. Happy Monday to everybody out there. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Hopefully you got a lot of rest. Hopefully you did some things that you needed to do to check off of your lists. This weekend was pretty busy for a few people. We'll get into that and kind of why it's emblematic of where we're going here with the coronavirus. It's not necessarily good, but stick with me. As always, you could share this post or share this live stream on your timelines. I would appreciate it, and it's worth bonus points. And I would appreciate it even more if you'd jump in the conversation. I'd love to hear from you all out there on the topics that we got going on. So let me know if you have something to add. All right. As I mentioned, this weekend, it was a busy weekend for some people. We heard, probably you might have heard if you took a peek at the news this weekend, about the gatherings at Miami Beach. This is like a big spring break time for a lot of people. Even though, schools aren't back in full capacity, people still want to vacation. They want to break, if you will, in full capacity. Miami's a hot spot for that. And we saw that last year with the implementation of this virus. People were like showing up at all different types of places in Florida, trying to just have a good time. Hoping that this coronavirus was just something small that could blow over, or that would blow over. And that if it did affect anyone, it certainly wasn't going to be the young people who were arriving in South Beach, places like that, and people like that. But obviously, as we saw, it was affecting and infecting young people and old people alike, though the results might have been a little bit more devastating for, the older crowd. But it didn't take away from the idea that, of course, this was a terrible idea to gather en masse when the country had just realized at this point last March that there was a serious issue going around with a viral disease, or a virus rather, that was actually killing people. So this year, a year later, obviously things have not changed for many people, even after seeing the devastation. 500,000 people perish, from the coronavirus in the last year hasn't deterred some people from showing up. So you might have seen the footage. A lot of people of color. I don't know if that's like tinfoil hat, conspiracy theory type of thing going on, but whenever I was looking at the footage and the news coverage, there seemed to be a lot of people of color in Miami. At least that's what I saw, which led to a lot of attention. I don't know if people of color led to a lot of attention, but there was a lot of attention on what was happening in Miami Beach with these people gathering. Obviously, I think that this was a bad idea. Either way, just because they're black and brown people doesn't mean that I think that they're exonerated from criticism here. I'm sure there are a lot of white people there too, but the point being, this kind of thing has been happening in different pockets over the last couple of months, where people have gathered en masse without masks, seemingly, to kind of slap it in the face of COVID restrictions and regulations, saying, I want to have fun. In so many words, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy myself. I've been cooped up in the house for far too long. And I want to be out, right? That's kind of the mask that it's kind of, the guise rather that it's masked in. But I think it gets a little bit deeper than that on both sides of the ball, because I still don't think that people are taking this seriously enough, or they think that maybe because we're at the end, this is not that serious. According to CNBC, as of Sunday, that's yesterday, the 7-day average of new cases rose by more than 5% in 27 states. By 5%, rather. Let me say that again. The 7-day average of new cases rose by 5% or more in 27 states, according to CNBC analysis compiled by John Hopkins. The article goes on to mention that the lifting of restrictions, this is key, the lifting of restrictions in many states and the spread of more contagious variants in the U.S. threaten to undo the nation's progress, which has seen cases, hospitalizations, and deaths all fall dramatically since the peak earlier this year. Now, I talked about this last Monday, right? Like Dr. Fauci came on Meet the Press last weekend and he said, look, we're at the five. He made an analogy that basically said, look, we're at the 5-yard line here, a football analogy. Do not spike the ball now. This is not the time to start wilding out. Okay. And he said that ahead of what was anticipated to be this big rush of travel during the springtime. People that just travel during the spring to want to get out of the house after a long winter, spring breakers, other people that might be, finding these locations. And he says, look, we can't spike the ball. And that was another way of saying, please don't do this. We are asking you in many ways, be more responsible than this. Be the responsible party, and please do not gather. Now, a point that I argued a couple of months ago, and it's a small point, but one that I think kind of plays into what we're talking about tonight, and that's that we knew from a federal level. Now, a federal level, I'm talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about U.S. House of Representatives. I'm talking about the Senate. The representatives of government at the highest levels during the course of the pandemic, in 2020, when Donald Trump was still at the helm, was unwilling to sort of take a hard stance on COVID from a national perspective, from a federal perspective. They really didn't want to get into it. They really didn't want to, sort of restrict, I guess, the way that people moved and the way that people were reacting to this virus too much. And so the president effectively put the power, if you will, of restricting their citizens in the hands of the governors, the smaller people. It was a strategy that first and foremost attempted to, let's say, absolve Donald Trump from any responsibility regarding what happens with this virus, right? If Donald Trump doesn't say what you're allowed to do or what you're not allowed to do, then whatever happens really isn't on him, right? That was kind of their strategy. That's the first thing that it did. But the second thing, that it did is that it sort of left every state to create its own version of what they felt was safe or what they thought was effective, and in that, we had 50 different strategies. Maybe some states linked up and said, whatever New York does, New Hampshire's going to do, and Rhode Island's going to do, or something like that. But in general, there were pretty much 50 different plans for what to do with this in this particular case. And my argument was that weakens the unified message that you could have had surrounding COVID. Right, which is that COVID affects you just the same in Florida as it does in Iowa or in New Hampshire or in Maine or in Texas, right? All over the place. And that just because you have different rules in different states doesn't mean that COVID is going to affect you differently in different states. That was sort of the message. That message rather didn't get pushed out with a 50-state strategy there. And so you had certain people in certain parts of the country that believed certain things about COVID based upon the restrictions or non-restrictions that they had, that they had specifically for their area. Whereas if you lived in a state like Pennsylvania was a little bit more strict, right? They are continually one of the more, and I don't mean this from a political realm, but the more conservative states in terms of reopening. They're not rushing to reopen. There aren't a lot of, you don't see a lot of measures that are rushing rather to get back as much as other states have. And that's really drawn a lot of ire and criticism from those in leadership. Did we need stricter measures back then? And do we need them now? That's my argument, that could have been the case from the very beginning, right? The hammer could have been brought down, and the president or the governors at any point could have said, no mas, I'm shutting it all down. Restaurants will not be open. Stores will not be open. There's no 6 feet rule. There's no nothing. Everybody has to stay home. And I can envision that being pretty effective, but I can also envision that sort of freaking everyone out at the same time. I think there would have been an even more upset and uproarious reaction to that kind of thing if the hammer would have been dropped down. But I think we would have avoided a time like this, where as the virus is slowly eking out, right, and we're slowly getting rid of this, we now have people that are like, okay, we're ready to go, ready to open up restaurants, ready to take off our masks, we're ready to stop sanitizing everywhere and get back to normal. We're done. It's a crying shame, right? It's a crying shame. But I do think that if the government is too heavy-handed here, the freedom nerds that I talked about would have popped up and cried foul. There would have been people literally at state houses knocking down the doors, arguing that the country had turned into some sort of fascist nation. And that's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. Okay, because we actually saw that on January 6th for a different reason, slightly different reason. We actually did see people knocking down the Capitol door because they felt that their freedoms were being infringed upon. Now, obviously, that has been debunked a million times over, and it will continue to be debunked, but people still did it. And when I look back now at why exactly the heavy hammer didn't come down in terms of COVID restrictions, that continually stands out to be the loudest reason why. I think America would have freaked out. Continually, I look at the citizens of this country and think, man, are we really capable of being this great nation that we claim to be? I don't know. Before I get into my next section, let me get to some comments. You can leave your comments in the comment section, Periscope, whether you're listening Facebook or YouTube live right now. Leave your comments, and I'll try and get to them before the end of the show. So before I get into what happened here in Pittsburgh, my hometown, and my current city as well, let me get to some of these comments. Lisa commenting in on the Periscope, she says, "Hey Keaton, miss your voice. Hair is mad long. It's just been growing out. I have no idea what's going on with this. I've had nothing to do in the pandemic other than grow my hair. So next time I'm in Philly, Lisa, I got to show you in person. It's just out of control at this point. But thanks, Lisa, for tuning in. I appreciate it." Jovan commenting in on the YouTube page. He says, "People got to remember, just because there's still a vaccine," I'll put that one on the screen there, "we need to take precautions. Do not blow a 28-3 lead or a 3-1 series lead." References to the Falcons and the Golden State Warriors, right? Let's not get too rested, too comfortable in our laurels that we kind of strip everything off. And here's the thing. It's tempting because we've been in the house. We've been shut down for so long that I understand why people want to just, like I said, rip off the masks and get back to it. I was in Lowe's today. I saw two people in that store that had no mask, not like a just mask over the nose or like, down around the chin, no mask at all, which is a failure by the store to stop those people from doing that, and a failure by the actual people to wear the masks. I just think that people are letting off the gas way too early. They think that this is over, to your point. They think that this vaccine means that we are all immune to it. That could just be an ignorance thing, or it could just be an impatience thing. Let me get on to the next one. Tavon Keeps a Fit Parker. He says, "What would you have done if you had to make the call?" I think about this a lot, T. Actually, I refuse to enter the realm of public service. I think it's just a mess. I think there are some brave individuals that are willing to take on that task, and good on them for that. But if the power was in my hands, I think I just would have brought the hammer down. I think I would have shut it all down, because I think the worst thing that could have happened to me in that situation is that I'm persecuted politically for my decision, if this decision is mine. And I say restaurants close down, massage parlors, barbershops, all that other stuff. And people might have been like, "Yo, Keaton's the worst governor that I've ever been, that I've ever witnessed, that I've ever experienced." But the numbers would have been down, and I would have been okay with that. And I think I'll get ready to talk about Tom Wolf in this next segment and how he's kind of putting himself in that position. But I think that's what I don't know if I would have done exactly what Tom Wolf would have done, or what Tom Wolf did, but somewhere along those lines, I think I would have shut it all down. Dime Package checks in on the Periscope. She says there are European countries that were more strict than the U.S. and they're still dealing with it. Yeah, and she also says, but agree that strict measures have helped them stem the infection rate. That is very true. And looking at Europe as a future predictor model for what could happen in the United States is a very good idea, according to this virus. Everything that has happened in Europe, or countries further east of here, depending on how you look at the world, it's all a big globe, but whatever. Those countries, oftentimes what has happened there has happened to us not too long after, like very shortly after. So it is a good barometer to look at what they did. Now, they did have strict lockdowns. They did have strict limitations on what was going on, and they were able to quell that virus to a very, very low level. But after, for example, like I remember Christmas, just this past Christmas time, restrictions were being lifted so that people could go shopping in the UK. That was obviously too early. December 25th was too early. When we look at the data, we see that some of the highest spikes happened like late December to early January. That was one of the hottest spots in terms of infection rates and spreading of infection rates and things like that. So yeah, Europe did it right, as you mentioned. But now, in the same way that they're lifting restrictions early and it's costing them, the same thing is happening here in the United States, which is, in my estimation, totally predictable. I don't want to do that because what's going to happen in Europe is that, and it's what's happening now, is that they're going back on lockdown. There are new imposed lockdowns that are happening, and that's not cool because I don't want to go backwards from here. I have plans for this summer. I want to have fun. I want to go to the beach. Sorry, I just got off on a side tangent there. But I do want to go to the beach. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So the next thing that, this sort of runs into, I talked about Governor Wolf and kind of how he's kind of taken some flack for this. So this also happened over the weekend. I told you, this weekend was hot with people. Too many people. It's really nice yesterday. It's really nice today, weather-wise, but I don't encourage this. This is coming from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, my hometown, Pittsburgh. About 150 protesters, some hoisting U.S. and other flags, marched into downtown Pittsburgh, or as people call it around here, downtown, to a mid-morning rally in Point State Park. The meeting in the intersection of the Three Rivers, airing grievances on topics ranging from the mask mandate to the 2020 presidential election. Now, you can probably guess exactly what kinds of people these were. 150 protesters protesting mask mandates in the 2020 presidential election. I'll let you figure that out. Anyway, the crowd chanted, according to the article, USA, USA, what do we want? Freedom. And impeach Wolf. Impeach Wolf, a reference to, of course, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf, who I think has oftentimes made some tough decisions. He's sometimes gone back on those, but he's made some tough decisions that I think other governors were unwilling to do and that other people were unwilling to do. So shout out to Tom Wolf. It has, by the way, completely shattered his political future. Like, Tom Wolf probably doesn't have a lot of political juice from here on out. And it's likely because of the actions that he took. I mean, you all can let me know, but I thought Tom Wolf did a pretty good job. It's an almost impossible situation, but I think he made some of the tough decisions that a lot of other governors wouldn't have made. I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, this conservative rally happening in downtown Pittsburgh was really an interesting sort of event to happen, but not necessarily surprising. The article says that they raised topics as they marched from gender identity to individual rights. And of course, they proceeded without incident, no counter demonstrators or anything else, because why counter these people? Why counter this? I've talked about these people before. They're freedom nerds, in my opinion. They're people that think that when access to more, so to speak, is given to more people, that is in some way, shape, or form infringing on their freedoms, right? They think that there's only so much freedom to go around in this country. And if other groups of people, formerly marginalized groups of people, African Americans, women, immigrants, gays and lesbians, people that fit outside the normal spectrum realm of like normal, quote unquote, white people, oftentimes ostracized in this country. But the freedom nerds feel that something is being taken every time those groups receive something. And during the course of this coronavirus, mandates like please wear a mask, please stay 6 feet away from each other, do not gather in mass in large, gatherings. This was really a protection method for everyone. You might think that or feel that it infringes on your personal freedoms to have to do something that not only keeps you safe, but also keeps the lives of the people around you safe as well. You might think that that's an infringement on your freedoms, your personal, your individual freedoms. And these people constantly are a threat to this country that, again, claims to be this united place that loves everybody and stronger together, united we stand, divided we fall. You've heard everything. Like, you've heard all of this stuff before. But it's dangerous to operate in theory as a country that claims and loves to want to be united, but acts a different way. These people that were gathering downtown today, there might have been only 150 or so protesters, but in a small place like Pittsburgh, that's pretty significant, right? Maybe only 150 people were willing to actually get up and go to this rally downtown in Pittsburgh. Maybe only 150, but there's a lot more that feel like this. Remember Wendy Bell? I don't know, Pittsburghers probably remember Wendy Bell, that her story kind of went nationwide after she decided to wild out, herself. And if you're not familiar with Wendy Bell, take a few minutes and look up the fall of her career from WTAE, local anchor here, to just total nut job, in my opinion, my humble opinion. But anyway, she was one of the people that was there, and she's a person that represents a lot of these people that are frustrated with what's going on with Governor Tom Wolf and the state. This conservative mentality that individual freedoms are better. It's all a conspiracy. Masks are just all part of the big conspiracy. They want you to wear masks. They want you to separate and everything else like that. It's a threat and a danger, not to those people individually so much as it's a threat and a danger to those who are most vulnerable. The question just came up a little bit earlier. What would I have done in this situation if I had leadership? You have to take the hit politically. You have to take the hit socially to say, I'm going to do what's best for the people, because sometimes the people cannot govern themselves. I know that sounds very anti-American, but sometimes it shows, and this is a perfect example of it, that the people sometimes don't have the ability to govern themselves. Just a thought. Anyway, political opponents of Biden, just to wrap this conversation up, political opponents of Biden will be challenging the country's culture over the next few years. Freedom nerds like this that gathered in the park here in Pittsburgh are not just representing an ideology. They're not just representing the diverse spectrum of political views that can sometimes be spread across this country. They are absolutely attempting to attack a particular message going on here in America, a message and a movement, rather, that COVID relief is inextricably sort of tied to, unfortunately. But anyway, political opponents of Biden will try to attempt to tell you that the country is losing something that it once had. You are losing something that you once had if you don't join these people, these fake patriots, in their mission to destroy democracy. There will be an all-out attempt, I think, to relabel some of these changes that we are going on as fundamentally shifting that sacred country of this culture. Look at arguments like, Mr. Potato Head is no longer Mr. And families, I talked about this a couple shows ago, this concept that some Republicans believe that families must work to live. That is the idea of the American family, is that you must work to live. America is for Americans, with the crisis, quote unquote, going on at the border right now. We're allowing too many people to come in. If we allow all these people who aren't Americans to come in, then America will be something else. America is for Americans. Or mask our freedoms. These are sort of things that are inextricably tied up in these sort of culture wars that are going to be going on over the next 4 years. It's not about individual issues. It's about attacking a way of life. And if these conservatives can attack a way of life, they don't have to say we don't want to wear masks. They can simply identify certain people as those, who are going to follow the rules. Those people who are slaves to the government system. that you no longer have any more individual freedoms because you do whatever the government tells you to do. I'm saying just a thought that we have to consider. I was reading some stuff on I guess this is the Wall Street Journal last week. I don't know why I was reading the Wall Street Journal, but hey, I'm here. I was doing it. And in the Wall Street Journal, this article, this opinion piece basically said as much that we are losing not only conservative ideals in this country, but we are losing the very fiber and the very idea of what it means to be America. And I say to that, good. That doesn't make me anti-American. I've always wanted to live in a better country, wanted this to be the better country that I live in as well. And I think for us to be that better country, we've got to let go of a lot of the old ways, so to speak. And those that are trying to conserve the way that things are right now, sometimes referred to as conservatives, GOP Republicans, Trumpites, Trumpsters, MAGA people, are attempting to conserve, to keep the things the way that they are now. As we go through rapid changes, not only just with COVID, but social changes, economic changes. I talked about consistent income, things like that. As we go through these changes, and as Joe Biden and the Democrats, the party of giving out more of this money and giving out more of these freedoms, as that party remains in power, the opposition is going to be telling many people on the internet and QAnon and message boards and people on Facebook and all types of stuff. The counter message will say, if you accept that America is becoming a better place for more people, then you are accepting that your own individual liberties are being squashed. And they're going to try and convince you that that's a good thing. This doesn't come from one outlet. This doesn't come from one person. This comes from all different types of places. And we got to be a step ahead to understand, not that, everything that Joe Biden and the Democrats do is fantastic and wonderful, and we should just follow it without question. Not that. I'm not saying that. But understand that this country is going through massive changes right now. And some of the resistance that we see, like this little gathering in downtown Pittsburgh over the weekend, little pockets of resistance like that are simply trying to drag us away from the idea of change. And we got to keep that in mind. Absolutely have to keep that in mind. Let's see what comments that we got. I appreciate folks listening in. Dave McGowan on the Facebook, he says, what is it called when one group of people wants to stop the freedoms or rights of another group? He says, I'll wait. It is interesting as many times as we go through this kind of stuff. I'm watching this documentary on HBO right now. It's the documentary about QAnon and how it got started, why people believe the stuff that's going on these message boards and stuff like that. And legitimately, I believe that these people, they do legitimately believe that they are being infringed upon, that they're losing something. These people actually feel it. It's not a game for a lot of these people. It might have started out as a game, but it's not a game for a lot of these people. They really are willing to fight for their country, whatever that means. To me, that's kind of scary because I don't know what that means. It's kind of scary for me also because I'm not considered a part of many of these people's vision of what, and who should be in the country. That's problematic for me. So obviously I challenge that kind of thing as well. But you're right, Dave. I mean, it happens so much in this country. I don't want to get into wages and things, but it happens a lot with wages too. Like there's so many people in this country that are trying to stop others who make less money than them from making more money. Think about that. Like there's people that make $20, $25 an hour, $30 an hour that will march in the streets as counter protesters in a $15 an hour minimum wage debate, right? Like these are people that will hit the streets to ensure that people making minimum wage now won't have their minimum wage increase to $15 an hour. I can't think of another activity in a country that touts freedom the way that it does. I can't think of a more pointless activity than that. But it happens all the time. Unfortunately, it's absolutely outrageous. But we gotta keep our eyes open to a lot of things. As I oftentimes end these things with, like, we gotta keep our eyes open. We gotta stay aware of what's going on. just because I think it's easy to get swept up in, sort of rhetorics and narratives and things like that. I think we got to be smarter than that. I think we can be smarter than that, but it all starts with us kind of taking command and taking control over what's going on in our own lives. In that sense, don't let other people on the internet sort of influence you as to what to think about something. Develop your own thoughts on this kind of thing, and it thwarts that stuff away. But anyway, that's all I got for today. That's exactly 30 minutes. The way that just like we planned it today. I appreciate everyone for commenting in. Oh, Keisha got down there. She says, I agree as well. I appreciate you, Keish, for listening as well. I appreciate everyone for listening. If you have comments, even if you're listening to this afterwards on the replay, please leave them in the comment section. Would love to hear from you. I'll be back on Wednesday, March the 24th, for a fresh edition of A Nichols Worth at 8 p.m. If you want to catch up on all the rest of these episodes, go to youtube.com/A Nicholsworth, and shout out to our sponsors, Parkour Therapy. Of course, you can go to parkourtherapy.com right now to get your free workout started, your digital workout. If you go to parkourtherapy.com, click the Parkour Plus button, the Parkour Plus tab, rather, you can get started on your own personal workout. You can do abs, you can do basketball, you can do all types of stuff, customize it exactly the way that you want, earn badges along the way so you can see how you stack up against the competition of other people running the app as well. Once more, that's parkourtherapy.com. All right, so we're out of here. Make sure you check me out on Wednesday, March the 24th at 8 p.m. for another fresh edition of A Nichols Worth. Until then, I will see you all on the flippity flip.